Florida State thought it was making a power move. Instead, it played itself into a corner. For months, the Seminoles postured, spent millions in legal fees, and insisted they had a way out of the ACC's grant of rights deal. The problem? They had no leverage. No plan. There is no landing spot. Clemson followed the same misguided path, and both schools now realize the reality they refuse to acknowledge. This isn't new information. Last summer, multiple sources from the Big Ten made it clear they had no interest in Florida State, labeling the school a bad partner, as it tried to blow up the ACC for a bigger payday. FSU's plan relied on a fantasy: escape the ACC, then become an irresistible target for the Big Ten. But the Big Ten never called. The SEC never called. No one did. FSU and Clemson signed the grant of rights agreement in 2013 and then again in 2016. They knew the deal extended through 2036. They knew ESPN held the cards and wouldn't renegotiate a contract that overwhelmingly favored the network. They knew the ACC controlled their media rights even if they left. And still, they pushed forward, torching bridges along the way. Hernán Cortés famously burned his ships upon landing in Mexico, forcing his men to fight with no retreat. Florida State did the same, except there was no empire to conquer, only a hard lesson in contract law. Only when it became painfully apparent that no conference was waiting with open arms did FSU return to the negotiating table. The burned ships were still smoldering. The court battles had only weakened their position. And yet, despite all the reckless maneuvering, the ACC still made a concession, agreeing to a revenue model that rewards the schools driving the most value, something FSU and Clemson wanted all along. It's a fair argument that ACC football loses its appeal without those two programs. Television networks aren't paying for Wake Forest versus Syracuse when they could air SEC or Big Ten blockbusters instead. But the same structure exists elsewhere. Vanderbilt benefits from Alabama. Purdue cashes in on Michigan. That's how conference partnerships work. This is the system until college football inevitably breaks away from the NCAA model and forms a super league. FSU and Clemson spent months fighting it, only to end up right back where they started, minus millions in legal fees and goodwill. The ACC had the contract. It had the leverage. It had the upper hand from the start. Florida State and Clemson brought a fantasy to a gunfight. And they lost.